Hey everybody, welcome back to Backtrekking, the podcast where we look back at the real-world inspirations behind classic episodes of Star Trek. I'm one of your hosts, Caliban, and always read the Ferengi print. And I'm joined on this episode by my co-host.
I'm Gooey Fame, and I have a Cajun Uncle Mario.
Hey, Mario, like Super Mario?
Super Mario, yeah.
There's a couple connections between Super Mario Brothers and this film that we're talking about today, but we'll get into that. We've returned to explore the stories behind your favorite Trek shows, and today we're talking about two pieces of media, both derived from The Most Dangerous Game, literally The Most Dangerous Game, the 1924 short story by Richard Cornell about the deadliest prey of all, man. Or Tosk. It's the DS9 episode Captive Pursuit and the 1993 action spectacular Hard Target.
Great combo here. Great double feature.
Yeah. And there's a lot, I don't know, like every once in a while, and especially now that all movies are comic book movies, which themselves are action spectaculars, there's an ongoing debate about like what the best action movie is. And it's kind of like when Bernie doesn't get invited to the debates, you know, like the guy with the best ideas is not even being considered. But I think 1993's Hard Target is a huge dark horse for that title.
Yes, there's a handful of woos that you could reach down and grab from.
Oh, sure.
And they're all perfect contenders for that category.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking like American division, but certainly if we opened it up international, there's a couple woos.
Oh, then it's like it's not even competition at that point.
And a film really like not even like considered in its time, just poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic. At the time, sort of dismissed as a real step down for John Woo. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that contributed to that not going so well in the American box office and kind of what happened to John Woo when he got to America. But that is all for later. Instead, let's talk first about Star Trek news, as we usually do on the show. And I don't think there's a ton of Star Trek news, but there's a couple things that I wanted to sort of touch on. Well, first of all, of course, it's William Shatner's, or was recently William Shatner's 90th birthday.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Happy birthday.
Yeah, still going strong. As are several of the people still around from the original series. But he's still doing things, making movies.
He looks good. He still looks good, I think.
He's looked pretty much the same for the last like 25 years.
Yeah. I had a friend recently who was getting into Star Trek and was watching along. And she was kind of updating me on how she went with it. And then she I forgot where she got, it was one of the movies maybe. And she was like, okay, he's starting to look like William Shatner now.
Oh, okay. All right. The Shatner she knows. Yeah.
Yeah. He transitioned at one point from young Captain Kirk to the modern William Shatner. And then he's kind of stayed there looking a little bit older as he goes on, but he's keeping it together pretty good. I'm sure all that money helps. You should show her T.J. Hooker and blow her mind. He's that's prime Shatner.
Yeah, it's like overlaying those two. Original series Shatner and then Priceline Negotiator Shatner. He's got a new film coming out at some point here, or maybe it's out already. Who knows with films these days? But it's called Senior Moment, and it's pretty much what you'd expect. He's playing somebody's grandpa. It's double billed with Christopher Lloyd, reunited with his Star Trek III co-star, and they are wild
Lloyd's
and crazy.
Coming back, huh?
Old guys, yeah.
Or was he gone? I don't know. I just feel like I'm hearing about Christopher Lloyd in movies more lately.
He's is he a kook?
I don't know. I don't know anything about his personal life.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to think of who I'm thinking of, but there's somebody who's like, oh yeah, he's back. Oh boy, he's back.
Oh no. I hope not. He's kind of a treasure.
Yeah, I suppose.
As from an acting perspective,
I suppose. And another
Beloved.
guy who, is 82 and doesn't really look it. Or I mean, I don't know how you would determine if somebody looks their age, but not too far off from how they aged him up in the Back to the Future films. But he's
right,
just
yeah.
kind of always been that guy.
He's always just kind of looked, old, but maybe I'm just thinking of Back to the Future, yeah.
Well, I mean, his hair color's changed, obviously, but you
Yeah.
put him up against him in Taxi or something like that, and it's like, oh, it seems about the same.
Right, yeah.
That's what I hope for me. That's what I'm fingers crossed.
And age graceful. You need to get some of that Hollywood money.
And then they rub the special Hollywood juice on you that keeps you young.
Yeah, I don't even want to know what it is.
Well, speaking of people staying young, the Voyager crew is set to return to screens for a Voyager documentary, which has been doing very well on Kickstarter. They have blown through all their goals, and it looks like it's going to be fully funded. It's going to be a feature-length documentary, and it's going to have all the fixins in the same way that the DS9 documentary did.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, and I'm definitely interested in that for the same reasons I had mentioned previously, where it's like never was big on Voyager, but I feel like it'd be nice to kind of watch a little nice retrospective and see from some of the people involved with it, because while I didn't love that show as much, there's a lot of talented people involved in it.
Yeah, and they're all still with us, of course. I'd be interested to see too if they want to try to do some like HD upgrades on the footage. I know that it's a different situation than DS9, because they were already kind of shooting and broadcasting in some places in like a higher def, but going back over and just polishing those scenes, because the scenes from DS9 where they did that were really incredible.
Oh yeah, those were very nice.
The documentary has a name now. It is called To the Journey.
Okay.
Yeah,
sounds good.
That was my reaction too. And yes, you can trace it to it's a line, I think, in Endgame where the actually the future timeline people that get wiped out, so we don't know if everything ends up that way or not, but in the future Barclay is toasting the reunited crew, and the toast is To the Journey, in the same way that like To Absent Friends is sort of a TOS or TNG's toast. And I'm like,
I guess
pick something that immediately makes people go, oh yeah, that
Voyager.
Yeah, there's family in that nebula or something like that.
I guess you couldn't call it Endgame.
And game on. Game still going. Overtime.
The game is back in town.
Don't play games with me. No games, Mrs. Mulgrew. No, I don't know. Maybe something that resistance is futile. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what is a Voyager catchphrase. I'm not a. That's why I need to watch the doc. I just need to know the Voyager stuff.
Deserve to die. Something that Mr. Vulcan. There aren't really any catchphrases really from Voyager so much. Something about a mind meld.
Yeah, Voyager fans, speak up. Let us know.
Set a course for home is a big line that's in both the pilot and the finale.
Okay, and that makes sense. They're doing that every episode, if you think about it.
That's true. The journey home. Anyway, it's celebrating the journey. It's To the Journey, and it'll be out, God knows, someday.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's take it back to TOS for a second and talk about the city of Boston declaring March 26th Leonard Nimoy Day in honor of Leonard Nimoy and his character Spock.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I didn't hear about that. Is he from Boston?
Yes.
He is. I had no idea, actually. Cool. That's a pretty good thing for Boston to have. Yeah,
born and raised. And it is in cooperation with Leonard's efforts for COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, which is something that he suffered from and contributed to his death. But yeah,
right on. He deserves a day. He definitely deserves a day.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, I don't know how you Look, Boston, has many universities. It's, in some ways the foundation of our American democracy. But when you think of Boston, you just think of like rowdy Bruins fans. Doesn't it kind of have that character to it?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think of homophobia or something.
Okay, sure. There you go.
But just because, yeah.
Yeah, smash the bottle over somebody's head in honor of Leonard Nimoy, his character Spock, I guess.
Yeah. Let's get some more wholesome Boston, things going on.
Well, this is a step in the right direction for sure. No offense to our Boston fans.
No,
beautiful city.
I don't mean to cast that upon everybody. I'm sorry.
Rich history. Let's get to our featured subject for this week's episode. It's possible that the art form known as the action film reached its peak in the 1980s under directors like James Cameron, Richard Donner, and John McTiernan. At least that's what American audiences may have thought, but the truth is the action film is not solely an American institution, and throughout the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, Hong Kong filmmakers were crafting instant classic kung fu and crime films with a bombastic, almost balletic character. One luminary of the Hong Kong film industry, John Woo, grew up as a fan of the films of Hollywood, and in 1993 he came to America and teamed with the premier shooting and kicking star of that era, Jean-Claude Van Damme, to make the balls-out action spectacular Hard Target.
In the city of New Orleans, in a darker side of Dixie, away from the music and the lights, there's a new game in town.
You'll be provided with a guide, trackers, and the weapons of your choice.
I need to file a missing person report.
The competitors are deadly.
We pride ourselves in hunting only combat veterans, men who have the necessary skills to make our hunts more interesting.
And they always win.
You want to find your father? Get somebody who knows the city to show you around.
Now, the opposition is about to get one last chance.
What kind of a name is Chance?
My mama took when?
Our friend Mr. Boudreaux, Silver Star, Marine Force Recon. He's obviously not someone we should underestimate. He is an annoying little insect. And I want him stepped on hard.
We need to get out of here now.
Ladies first.
What?
These men will chase after you. You mad at you for business or pleasure?
Both. Look at it this way. You're gonna get to meet Elvis. Give it a rest, pal.
Jean-Claude Van Damme is the Hard Target.
You miss me?
From internationally acclaimed action director John Woo.
How's it feel to be hunted? You tell me.
Hard Target.
I realized when we were putting this together, and we didn't even plan this, but our Star Trek episode premiered in 1993, and this as well premiered in 1993.
Wow. There must have been something in the water then.
Yeah, it's who was drinking the water. Because, in the early and mid-90s, a lot of Hong Kong filmmakers headed over to America to escape the handing over of Hong Kong back to the Chinese from Britain, which nobody knew what effect that would have on the film industry. Of course, Hong Kong was just run separately from China under British rule and became just a real mecca for arts and film and cinema. And a lot of those filmmakers, like John Woo, guys like Choi Har, and other people whose names I'm forgetting right now, Jackie Chan, all were like, well, we got to get out of there. Let's just go to America and make Rush Hour.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I think there was, we've tackled a lot lately, kind of these, just classic stories, I feel like. In this...
The classic story of a merchant marine who helps a woman not find her dad.
Yeah, just I feel like the idea of the most dangerous game is something.
Oh, yes, of course.
Similar to some of the other movies and stories we've covered recently, is something that it's I've never even read or seen the original.
Really,
I kind of regret not doing it for this. I thought about it because it's on Wikipedia. You said,
You can just search, the title and text, and it's public domain,
which is incredible.
I won't read the excerpt from it that I was going to read because I don't want to ruin it for you. But yeah, you should. In the vein of Broomstick Ride or Arena or those other short stories that we read for the show, it's a great yarn, and you can really see before. I mean, action films have existed for 100 years, but before we really even got to what we think of as the modern action film, like some of that DNA is in that story,
right.
And
totally.
You can see why it was made into a film so many times. It was made into a film in 1932 called The Most Dangerous Game, which is. It's okay. I don't know. It's not my favorite, but it's all right. It's been a radio play starring Orson Welles. And then, of course, you've got all the spin-offs. You've got Hard Target. You've got Surviving the Game with Ice-T. You've got the DS9 episode. But that idea of, you're going to be hunted now. Humans are the deadliest prey. That's continued.
That's like, I've never seen that or read it, but I feel like all the other stuff, I was just so familiar with it because of it's been in everything. Like every cartoon I ever watched as a kid, probably at one point had that. There's probably a Looney Tunes and a Dexter's Lab or whatever.
Yeah,
it's in everything.
Adaptations of The Most Dangerous Game has its own Wikipedia page. That's how many there are.
Well, yeah.
But I was going to mention one of the first connections between this and Super Mario Brothers is that
okay.
Apparently the 1997 film The Pest is connected to or is based on The Most Dangerous Game.
God.
Starring your boy, John Leguizamo.
Oh, man. Okay, so this is another one I got to add to the list.
Oh, you haven't seen The Pest?
No, I have. I just
okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying,
No, I don't. I've not. Yeah, not encountered many people who felt that way. No, I just mean I want to go back and watch the original. Like usually, sometimes when we do one of these subjects, I kind of get engulfed in it and okay, what are the other versions? Which I didn't do this time around. Just didn't have the time, but
yeah. This film, like I said, didn't set the box office on fire in 1993. I saw it in 1993, and as old as I am, I don't think I was 17, so I don't know how I got in. But,
Did you
it happens.
like it back then?
Oh, God, yeah. I saw it with a friend of mine, and he and I were friends at school, but we didn't hang out much outside of school. And so, we saw it together, and I think that it was almost like a date. We were sort of a little uncomfortable with each other. And by the end of the movie, we just ran out of that theater oh my God, that was the best thing. I got to go see it again.
This movie is so sick. I didn't mention that yet, but it's so sick. This is something we talked about a long, long time ago, but it's what I would say is a good example of a movie that feels like a video game, but not in a bad way. Yeah. Where you said that could have negative connotations, but to me, it's it feels like a video game movie. I think I said that about Face Off too, where it's I just so badly wanted them to do the John Woo Stranglehold, but for this, I want them to make every John Woo movie into a game.
Into a game, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because it's such a weird, this guy comes over, he's a Hong Kong filmmaker, he wants to make an American film, and they choose New Orleans. This is
it's cool.
This is the early 90s. It's obviously a pre-Katrina New Orleans, and it does kind of lend itself to, you've got the Bourbon Street level, you've got the forest level, you've got the bayou level,
right?
And then of course the main boss level, a Mardi Gras warehouse, which is just yeah, let's do it. Let's set the finale in
the mood of that was really sick.
Yeah, a pigeon-filled, float-ridden Mardi Gras warehouse. Yeah, it's just a really interesting idea. And there's I'm sure you can look up the story. I'm not exactly sure what the story is, but I know that John Woo, is something that he does in his films is that there's always a story. It's never just let's find, scenarios to put people in that they can shoot each other. He decided that he wanted to tell a story about homelessness, and about family.
Sure, yeah.
And about being down in your luck and about the haves preying on the have-nots. And that continues throughout the entire story. It doesn't really get thrown away at any point. It's even like, I like how it is, they hit that theme like again, at the end where now Boudreaux's got this guy where he wants him and he's like, how does it feel to be haunted? It's like, now it's on you, buddy.
Oh yeah. The poor get bored too, or poor people get bored too. That was
poor
so
people
sick.
get bored too. Yeah. Yeah.
That's where, I mean, like, it even has, like, to me, the feeling of, like, a good video game story, which are pretty rare, where it's, like, it is goofy, and it is, like, over the top all the time, but it's, like, it's very earnest and, like, unashamed, and then also, at times, like, you can really connect with it,
Yeah.
Like, it's actually, like, kind of cool, and it has, like, some interesting stuff going on beyond just being, like, goofy, which I think a lot of people will only engage it on that level, where it's like, oh, it's goofy. Maybe they might say like, oh, it's cheesy or something like that. But it's really more than that, I think.
There's always been I don't want to say a goofiness, but even in his Hong Kong films, Wu, his action has had character. It isn't just, this guy is shooting or kicking this guy because he needs to defeat them. And also as the audience, we want to see a guy get shot. Like, he's always using very specific beats in the action to tell the story. It isn't like there's a story, we're trying to find this guy, lady's dad, and then that stops. And then there's just a bunch of like chaotic violence. And then we go back into the story. Like, he's continuing telling the story through the beats of the action. And one of the ways that he does that is, people laugh, and I've laughed myself, at like when Jean-Claude kicks somebody, you see it from like 3 angles or 3 times. And it's like, is he spinning around? Did he hit a wet patch on the ground and he's going around, hitting him again? But he's doing that to like, emphasize what's happening. And also a lot of action films will, cut away from the punches or the kicks because they're trying to hide what's going on, and try to make it seem more kinetic. And John Woo, maybe a precursor to like Zack Snyder's work, slows it down so because you see exactly what's happening, and the characters are defined by the way that they comport themselves in these fights. I love the very first kind of action scene, not the opening scene, I love that too, but where he is defending Natasha from the guys who are going to rob and rape her, and he comes out and it's like this, it's kind of like this, almost a cowboy movie kind of vibe. And when they all square up and he's about to fight them, he flings back his trench coat, over his hip to reveal nothing. There's no gun.
I was like, he's leg. Revealing his leg.
His leg is the weapon. Yeah. And then
sick.
He takes all these guys out and he's like, be careful with your wallet. And as he walks away in slow motion, she's just like, whoa, that guy kicks ass. He's walking, there's a car behind him and the sun is reflecting off the window of the car. And so it looks like he's kind of walking into a sunset, but he's just walking into the reflection of a car window.
Beautiful. Yeah. I felt like so many things in that moment where it's like, I was like, first I felt, okay, guy, like, let's not admonish her too much here. She's trying her best. But then as he was walking away, I would be like, but you know what? I would be like, this guy's pretty cool. If I was her, so I'd be like, yeah, okay, fair play.
We know that this guy's in the same situation. He just paid for gumbo with 48 cents, but he's heroic and he's a bit of a cowboy. We see that in the language of the film.
Yeah. I like what you said about like they savor those moments. Like you feel like all the little movements and everything. That's something I felt recently. I watched The Raid, and it has a similar vibe where like it's not even just like the fighting choreography, but like it's all the like little tiny movements you do in between those things. Like whether it's like the obvious one is like just reloading the guns,
Yeah.
And there's just like the slow-mo shots of like the shells coming out, and they like do a lot of sound design on that, or just like even like that, just like little tiny movements that aren't necessarily the big like shoot 'em up movements. And it really feels like there's like they just really care about every single bit of the action, which I love. Yeah. It's so engrossing.
Characters with no lines, or characters that are not important, really important characters, still get their due, get their moments in movies like that. Like definitely in The Raid, like characters who, this guy's just going to be dead. He's going to get stabbed 15 times in the next 10 seconds, but yeah. he might have a look, or he might have some contribution, or he might trip over something, and then they hear that, and then we're going to get into that. You see that in this film as well with guys like first of all, I like the fact that, so like in the original story and in the idea of hunting, there's a hunter, but also the dogs that drive the prey, and the dogs are motorcycles in this. I thought that was really cool. But there's the motorcycle guy who he comes into the warehouse, and they're looking for Van Damme, and then a pigeon shits on his helmet, and he's mad, so he shoots the pigeon. But while he's doing that, he's emptying his clip, and he's not paying attention to Van Damme, who's there, and then he blows him out of the window. But I like those little moments like that. That guy, we don't know that guy's name, doesn't even have one, but it just makes it kind of more real.
Yeah, it's so memorable. Yeah. And just all those little moments, like when he was like using the helmet to like look at the reflection or whatever. Like, that was so sick.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to keep doing the video game metaphor, but I was watching this with my buddy Paul, and he said the motorcycle guys they'd be like the characters if it was like a beat 'em up, where they're like not even like enemies, they're more of like, obstacles in the level, and you just like punch them and they like go flying.
Right. Yeah, like in a Streets of Rage side scroller.
Yes, exactly.
They would just go zoom, zoom, and zoom by and maybe knock you over. Yeah.
Yeah, and like if you're lucky, you'll get a hit in and they won't hurt you.
I like too that we spend a lot of time with the villains, and the villains we don't really get to know them really well, but we understand their motivations, and there's something on the line for them too. And first of all, everybody in this movie is having a fantastic time. Like, I love the fact that the villains like love what they do, and the mummy guy, like when he when he blows that one guy's head off, it's so brutal, and he's just like, I'm having a good day. This is a good day for me.
Yeah, that's to me, that's like. There's like the good type of good villains everyone says, where it's like, oh, they're the hero of their own story. And then there's like this one where it's like, yeah, but like there's nothing like redeeming about these guys. You know what I mean? No. Which I love that too. Like that's the cool approach to me, where it's like you can just make them seem so. I don't know, like just so sadistic, and it's just all these little character moments that build the character.
Yeah, they're complete and utter vultures, but they are the heroes of their own story. And I love when Pick is the mummy guy is kind of briefing their new client, and the whole thing is scored by a piano piece, but we see that it's Lance Henriksen's character like playing the piano piece, and he's just like it's like he's trying to kill the piano with his hands. He's just like just playing it, and then we end with like, as the piece comes to an end, they're watching him play. It's just like a weird thing. It's like, yeah, I'm going to give you $500,000 to murder somebody. Oh, wait, I have to wait for this guy to stop playing the piano. Okay, all right, well. Oh, very good, very good.
He's also like aggressively staring in the mirror, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's like frustration or self-hate or restlessness, but people are dancing to his tune.
Yeah, to me it just showed how like like how powerful he felt, where he's like, I have to look upon myself.
Yeah.
As I angrily rip this tune out of the piano.
Yeah, I love that. Birds are very helpful in this film. I don't know if Van Damme has communes with the birds. John Woo was famous for using doves in action sequences, and then I think he tried to make it a little more germane to the urban setting by having them be pigeons. But when Van Damme is like looking through the police report and he finds the one dog tag, and he's like, there's got to be another dog tag. But he only thinks that after a bird flies in his window and like lands
and
next
he goes
to
like
his dog tags, and he's like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was so confused for a second. I was like, wait, what about that confirmed it for him? And it nothing. He had an inspiration.
Thanks, Flappy.
I was nervous when she went to the one person's house and there was a bird in a cage, because I thought back to that cafe sequence in Hard Boiled where they're in like the bird cafe.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh man,
to that. Yeah.
I was like, oh no, something's gonna go down here. Like I don't trust any birds in any area of a John Woo film.
How long was the version that you watched?
Oh, I don't know. know. I can check, but
there's a like a 97 or in the 90s theatrical version. That's the version that came out in theaters. And then the one that gets, if you try to get it online, you can also get it on DVD and Blu-ray. There's a director's cut, release the Woo cut, which puts back in all the stuff that Hollywood wanted to take out. He had a real bad time making this movie, sadly. I think it was that, Van Damme was sort of at the height of his fame. He basically like ordered a John Woo. Like John Woo wanted to come over, and Van Damme was very cued into Hong Kong cinema and said, okay, I'm going to bring you in. I'm bringing you to America. Let's do this film. And then he proceeded to be like a total asshole throughout the production of the film. There's a story about how, the part where he gets on the horse and he's riding through the bayou and they're chasing with the helicopter. That was not supposed to be done. There was a whole nother sequence, a boat sequence where they were going to have a boat chase through the bayou.
Well, he got that boat sequence in later. So
well, that's why it's in that film, because he planned this whole thing out and he had been really excited about it. And then on the day of shooting, Van Damme comes out of his trailer and he's like, I don't want to get on a boat. And he's like, we planned this. We're going to shoot this for a week. So they had to sort of gin up this horse chase instead. But yeah, like you said, they did eventually put that into Face Off.
When did Street Fighter, the movie, come out?
95, I believe.
Oh, because they eventually got him on a boat.
That's true, yeah.
But I don't think that sequence was real at all.
Yeah, and 95, also Stephen D'Souza talks about how, he was just coked out of his mind at that point. Like,
right,
you just couldn't work with him.
I heard he had a rough time there in the 90s. Yeah. There's always some story about him being, like, stubborn. Like, with Predator, didn't he, like, refuse to do some stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But, I don't know. I don't know how much power the star should have. I think when he gets it right, like he definitely gets it right because he's been in some really fantastic films. But yeah, he's hard to work with. I don't know if you've ever seen JCVD.
No, I'm leading up to that. Me and my buddy Paul watched. We recently watched Kickboxer, and then we watched this together actually. And we're gonna rewatch. I watched Bloodsport last summer, but I want to rewatch it again. I kind of wanted to like go over some of his classic movies, and then I know that one's kind of like sort of about his career, right? So like, I wanted to kind of like get more context because I've seen those classic ones, but I kind of wanted to pick up some of those extra bits that I missed that also seem really cool.
Don't skip over Lionheart.
Okay, that'll definitely go in the queue then.
It's basically like an American remake. I mean, I guess Bloodsport isn't necessarily not American, but it's kind of like a remake of Bloodsport, like a lot of his films are. But it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, like Kickboxer is a blood sport.
Yeah, basically, more or less.
Which is cool. I love that kind of movie. So
he's not ever really in romantic situations, at least in his early sort of kung fu career, and I wonder what that's about. I mean, he's usually showing his butt and he's doing splits and stuff, but he rarely has like a girlfriend or a love interest.
I know we both noticed that watching this because we did just watch Kickboxer, and he does kind of have the girlfriend in that, and I feel like they have some great charisma in that, and he's just very cute and likable because all the people in the village he goes to love him,
right? And
in this, I feel like they didn't really have that him in the romantic character.
No,
and he seemed less like charismatic in that way, but then towards the end I was like, all right, I'm feeling it now. And I think for me what it was as the movie goes on, he's wearing less layers, Like in the beginning, he's just like this weird guy in a trench coat. He's cool, but he's weird. And then by the end, he's in his tank top and you got his muscles, and you're like, all right, this is like a hot dude, I guess. Like, it's more believable that someone would be into him at that point.
I'm not really sure what's behind that. It's not like Schwarzenegger is never really being all that romantic either, I suppose, but it's just something that you see a lot. It's something that I've seen in like a lot of Hong Kong movies too. Like almost all of Jet Li's movies, he barely has a girlfriend, or if he does, it's like a totally chaste thing. When he came over to make American movies, they made Romeo Must Die, which is literally a adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, and he and I think it was Aaliyah, whoever the female lead was, I don't think they even kiss in the movie.
Yeah, that's weird to me because, just in the case of Van Damme, like, I actually think he is a very charming dude.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, he's definitely been romantically successful, like in his personal life. Oh
sure, yeah. So to me, it seems like it would be an easy power to harness,
There's no time for that. We got to kick people 3 times in a row. We got to shoot them with an upside down gun. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's obvious when their characters meet that it's like, okay, they're going to get together. Yeah.
But it doesn't, it just doesn't feel as earned, I guess.
Doesn't always happen. Are the Cajun parts racist? Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I
is
really
this guy,
don't know.
Are they talking about Cajun people, or are they just talking about a crazy guy that lives in a shack in the woods?
Because I was raised like by TV in terms of that for like culture. Yeah. So like I always understood like Adam Sandler characters as like Cajun man and whatever, like
and Bobby Boudreaux,
right?
The
so
water
like
boy.
I've never, when I was growing up, never really knew what was going on. I was just like, is it weird French guys that live in the South? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or Gambit. I think of like Gambit. So
sure.
I don't know.
That in the 80s and 90s, that had a real Cajun people were in vogue, as they would probably say, using French. But you had the Cajun chef, and you had a character like Gambit, and so I don't know. Like it seems like a lost chance to have Van Damme play Gambit in an X-Men film in the 90s.
Yeah, he would have been good for that, honestly. He got the trench coat on, so
he's got that
halfway there.
Everybody in the 90s had to have a trench coat.
I is this like, did we do a double dipping on weird ethnicity movies from last episode with with Tom Cruise?
Yeah, we're doing this is secretly a examining white racial stereotypes podcast.
I did like. I feel like
don't look too closely.
Van Damme played a good Cajun. I feel like you just kind of squint. He's not like trying hard. Like Wilford Brimley Mario Cajun was definitely over the top in a fun way. But like Van Damme, it's just like, okay, he's like a guy with a weird accent. I always like in his movies they kind of just like hand wave the accents, with
they
Colonel
really
Guile and stuff.
Yeah, they really just, in like Arnold Schwarzenegger films, they barely even bother to explain it half the time. But there usually is at least one pointed scene in a Van Damme movie where they go, "Oh, he's in the French Foreign Legion," or "Yes, he's a French Canadian," or I think in Universal Soldier he is also Cajun or Acadian.
Yeah, in Kickboxer, his brother is so American sounding, and he's just got like a line where he's like, "Yeah, you grew up in Europe with mom."
Yeah, you were in Europe. Yeah.
Okay, sure. And that's all I need.
And I grew up with Daryl Oates from Hall & Oates, because that's how I look. Yeah.
My parents, Daryl Oates and Dan Severin.
Yeah, right. One of the things that I like about the gunplay in this is that it almost feels like if you watch a kung fu movie, I have the secret, like, dragon leg kick technique, but I have the shadow fist punch. And they're using guns, but they're exploiting every aspect of guns and weapons. So there's that part where he like shoots the gun upside down because he has to draw it from the other guy's holster, and he
so
fires
sick.
with his pinky. Or he gets the
That's
grenade.
a Sicario.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He gets the grenade from Pick, and he wraps it up in a shirt, and now he's got like a whippy weapon that he can knock guys out with. And then, of course, like there's the finale where he puts the grenade down the guy's pants, and he gets it out, and he's like trying to take the fuse out. That's when I learned, oh yeah, a grenade has a fuse. Now I don't know if you can like unscrew it like that. Why not? Sure, maybe that's a thing.
That moment is actually a great example of like all the little things, because in that short, brief moment of slow-mo, there were so many highs and lows. Like, because he's diving at the guy, and my buddy Paul's like, oh, he better stick that in his pants, like as a joke.
Yeah.
And then he does it, and it's like, and I went, oh my God, he's going to blow up his dick. And then the guy pulled it out of his pants, and I was like, no. And then he pulled it apart, and I was like, aw. And then it exploded, and I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Lance Henry.
Storytelling.
Lance Henriksen must have been having the time of his life on this film, because he puts so much work in. And of course, that's the other connection to he was the king of town or whatever in Super Mario Brothers, the fungus king. But
right. Oh my God.
But yeah, he's menacing. He's funny because he's like takes the fuse out. And he's like, haha, uh-oh. He's doing a lot of his own stunts. I always remember that scene. That's something that stuck with me. All the kicking, punching, and shooting. I just remember like that actor who I didn't even know, or I guess I knew him from Aliens. He's on fire in that scene, and that's him. And he's taking the coat off, and he's like, fuck this guy. I'm on fire.
I thought, relatively speaking, he was pretty chill for someone who was on fire. Like, if I was on fire, I'd be like crying on the ground, and he was just like, he was taking his time to take the coat off, but he was like keeping his composure for someone who's on fire.
Yeah, because he held on to his gun the entire time. So part of like the hitch in getting the coat off is that he had to switch his gun to the other side and then slide it off his thing. And then he throws it on the float, and they're still rolling. And the other actors are in the scene with fire, and he's like, go get that guy. And it's just, you could, I don't think you could get somebody to do that. It would just all be computers or something today.
Yeah,
There's no way you could
it looks
get somebody
so
to do
good
that.
though. And I feel like this is a thing in these kind of movies. He's like a good like action movie boss, and that like, he's not the most powerful guy, but like his character will mix it up, and like he will have a confrontation. It reminded me a little bit, I feel like you could see threads of him in Vigo in the first John Wick movie, where it's like, he's the boss. He's clearly not like the most physically gifted dude. He's old, but like at the end, he's like, all right, let's tussle. And he's going to put up a fight, Yeah. It's not the biggest fight, but he's not the henchman,
And they both, unlike a boss that just sits in a room until the good guy gets there, they both degrade over the course of the film.
Yes.
Because in John Wick, he's just psychotic. Like, okay, I'm going to fight John Wick. Let's do this. And in this game, like his cool is like, his composure is his weapon. And as he gets more and more frazzled, as Boudreaux keeps killing off his men and like making him look like a fool, he finally just sort of freaks out at the end.
So true. Do you remember in the moment right before that when like him and the mummy guy are like reloading on the like opposite walls and talking to each other?
Yeah.
Like, do you remember any of that dialogue? It really stuck out to me because it's like, it also reminded me of like the level of like dialogue that would be in like a Resident Evil game, where it's like, it's a little corny, but it's a little sincere, but it's not too self-aware either. And that's what I kind of love, where it's like, it's really cool, but also kind of goofy at the same time. Like they're just like smack talking each other, and it doesn't totally make sense, but it's so cool at the same time. I can't express how much I love that kind of stuff.
He's got, I love when it's terrible. It's terrible. It's just torture. This poor character, the fat guy who,
they really hated that guy. And the movie
everybody
felt like
hates that guy.
Nobody will feel bad for him if we just shit all over this guy.
But Van Damme is just doing things like, I love the fact that John Woo can take like these mundane actions and just put like slow the, overcrank the film a little bit and make them epic. And when they go to see him and to ask about her father, like he's trying to find a match and he lights the match and it's like, for a cigar. And then he goes to light it off of Van Damme's cigar and he just blows it out and he's like, oh.
That was such a cool move. Yeah.
But then the bad guys come later and they cut his ear off.
Yeah.
Randall, if I'm coming back here, I'm cutting me a steak.
They definitely were like, no, yeah, both sides can like be rude to this guy and people will love it. Because he's a fatty. That's
no
what
one
it felt like.
Well, yeah, no one respects the toady. Yeah.
There was a lot of weird details. Like I noticed in the dashboard of his car, it was filled with like chips, like loose chips, crumbs and stuff. I'm like, oh my god,
the movie hates this guy.
I know. I was like, I felt bad for him by the end.
For an early it's the early 90s, I guess. A little bit of like very casual homophobia. And of course, we hate the fat character, but I guess it could have been worse. Yeah,
there was. I was like, okay, they're really leaning into that, and then with the homophobia, it was kind of the run of the mill stuff. So it didn't.
Yeah, you and your boyfriend, get out of here.
Yeah, that's more of that like that'd be in a Resident Evil game. I don't know why I just kept thinking of that, but
Resident Evil New Orleans. Yeah.
He had a Leon Kennedy swagger to him for sure. But then, there was like, it wasn't like, awful, but like there was some moments too with the female character where I was like, what are we doing here? Cause they were like, I get the part towards the end where they were like, all right, take her and get her to safety. And then but then they end up coming and getting mixed up in the final battle. Yeah. But like, it was weird that Wilford Brimley was just like, all right, we're going in here. And then she defends herself, but then he's like, no, give me that gun. Look what you've done. And it's like, well, you brought her in here. Like, she should probably have a gun. I don't know. If you didn't want her to shoot someone, why'd you come into the warehouse, guys?
There's a couple scenes like that in John Woo's Hong Kong films where, the female character is smart and capable, and we respect her, but she's not a gunplay person, but she'll get cornered with a guy and then like shoot him and be like, oh my god, I shot that guy.
I didn't normally like, I kind of accept that where it's like, okay, he's, like at least the character, it's like it feels like a real character or whatever, but in this it was just odd. It struck me as odd of how much he admonished her for it. But I don't know, I liked what in Hard Boiled, what leads to like saving the babies and stuff like that. Like that was actually kind of a cool storyline.
Yeah, that's a good sort of way to keep her into it. I really love the setup and I love the spotlight that this movie puts on the problem of homelessness, and it makes it feel real, like what these guys have to go through. But it does, get dropped once they start blowing things up.
Yeah, I feel like just that it's mentioned is really cool, and like just the idea of like these sadistic, super rich guys who think killing homeless people is fun is like a great villain in itself, and it's also like another case of like, this doesn't need. The villains themselves don't need to be like these nuanced, like deep characters with like baggage or like you feel bad for them. It's like, no, just let them be like these, like you, it's almost like great. You like want to root against these guys. And then it's like through their performances where they like throw in all these little cool character moments that kind of make them, I don't know, like scarier, sometimes cooler, but like, we don't need to like be like, well, the main guy, his father was mean to him when he was young, and so this is like really a way that it's like, no, none of that.
Well, it's also their hubris that gets them killed, because by the time Boudreaux and Natasha are do that cool train stunt, and they're like, well, what are they going to do? Like, you guys are international criminals. You're just going to leave town. But they're like, we can't let this guy get away with dissing us like this. Yeah. We got one more hunt to do.
They should have left.
Back in. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, there's no scene at the end where, they leave the warehouse and they look in the trunk of the bad guy's car and all their money's there because they packed it up to leave and then they distribute the money among the homeless. There's nothing like that. We know there's a police strike, and I guess that's just to justify why no cops show up to any
Yeah,
incidents
that's why
in
he's
town.
got to do it.
Yeah.
And that
you
one
could totally
detective
remake
gets
this.
involved.
Yeah, you could remake this and set it after Hurricane Katrina, and then just, try to, keep those themes of rebuilding and people losing stuff, but also have this kind of going on in the chaos.
Yeah, I can see that.
But anyway, like I mentioned before, there is a longer cut of this film with all the stuff that John Woo wanted in there, which is about, I think it's at least half an hour longer.
Yeah, I just checked. I watched the theatrical cut, so
okay.
I would totally watch that though, just to see. There's all these cool details in his movies. I feel like even, like I said, on their surface level, I could totally see how someone could look at this and just see like, oh, it's like a goofball action movie. But then there's all like, it's weird. There's times where you're watching a scene and it's like, oh, this is kind of like a goofball scene. But then there'll be just like some really interesting camera work or something. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Like it's just like a weird spice to every scene almost.
Yeah. John Woo would make a couple more films, maybe half dozen films in America. Of course, we've talked about Face Off, but none of them, I don't know. I don't think any of them really set the world on fire. And I don't really know what he's doing now. I know that he went back to China, or at least made some more Chinese films, but it's not really on the scene.
I don't know that I've seen any beyond Face Off and Mission Impossible 2.
Right.
So I'd be curious to see them, because I guess we kind of, when we went into Face Off, I thought that was a movie everyone thought was bad, but then I looked and all the reviews were good.
Yeah, and then they announced recently that they want to do a sequel or a reboot, and people, that went out on the movie blogs, and everybody seemed excited about that.
Yeah, like I don't know. I had always just kind of heard that, and I think there is definitely a step down in the quality, but like saying like, oh, his American movies aren't as good as his Hong Kong movies, but in general, I think his American movies are better than like a lot of action movies of the time and beyond. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they kind of have this negative reputation.
Yeah, it probably comes from, hardcore Hong Kong film fans who just don't think that they measure up. But
which is, that's fair.
Anybody who doesn't want to be a part of that conversation can absolutely enjoy this film. And at any rate, it's the best action film in which a guy punches and knocks out a rattlesnake.
So good. Yeah. There was a rattlesnake transition into that too. The camera pans or whatever, they do a wipe and there's a rattlesnake noise while the camera wipes. So like foreshadowing the snake.
Yeah. Well, I could talk about this film all day, but we do have to move on. So let's take a break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more backtracking.
So Caliban, you finally show your face. Just in time for me to blow it off.
It's fitting you chose to hide in this abandoned movie theater, Mika and Hana, because for you, the show's over.
Big talk, but soon you'll be as dead as all the well-loved celebrities we lost this year.
When I'm done, they'll be cleaning you off the walls like COVID-19.
Wait, where's your face mask?
I thought we were going to fight outside.
Oh, come on!
I mean, if the murder hornets aren't out there still.
Take this.
You want to watch HBO Max on my phone?
I'll start cooking some beans in this old boot.
Just Enough Trope. News, reviews, and apocalyptic views every Monday on the Just Enough Trope Network.
Won't the 5G kill us? Shh. Okay, we're back. It's time to talk about the Trek side of this equation. When DS9 debuted in 1993, it promised a very different look at the world of Star Trek from the one that audiences saw in the original series and The Next Generation. Setting Deep Space Nine near a wormhole that leads to an entirely new unexplored quadrant meant all kinds of new challenges and new aliens could be seen on the series. But the DNA of Star Trek storytelling is strong, and as the show's first season debuted, many of its plots had a flavor familiar to watchers of previous Trek series. As that first season continued, though, DS9 distinguished itself from previous Trek outings by showing that our characters wouldn't always be making decisions informed by their Starfleet service, and would sometimes be acting compassionately in spite of it, as we see Miles O'Brien do in Captive Pursuit.
You've traveled almost 90,000 light years.
A wanted predator from the other side threatens the space station.
Show me where the weapons are stored.
Is he a dangerous criminal or a pawn in a brutal game?
I live the greatest adventure one could ever desire.
Now the crew finds themselves battling the unknown.
He's running from something, that's for sure.
The hunt is on the next exciting episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
As far as, like, O'Brien stories go, him being tortured, obviously, him hanging out with Bashir and getting into hijinks, him being, an amazing fix-it guy, even being a war veteran. This is just like baseline O'Brien. Like, if you turned all those knobs down, you just went, who is this guy? What does he do? How does he relate to, like, a new person that he's met? And how does he make a moral decision? This is it. This is like baseline O'Brien.
It's really nice, actually, because I think this is really his first featured sort of episode outside of TNG, and even those, when they usually got featured, something super, like, epic was happening to him, or something, some, like, the dark secret or something. Whereas, like, this, it's like, it's fun, it's kind of light, and you just kind of, a lot of it is just him being, like, a cornball engineer as well,
Yeah. And he's just he's a good guy. Like, something that I think they're lacking on DS9 is, like, shouldn't there be, like, a liaison character? They're meeting weird aliens all the time. But for whatever reason, the chief engineer is just like, hey, show this guy around, like, babysit this guy. And he's like, all right, well, we do this, and that's what your life is like? That's really different. Here, check this out. This is the bar. Here's our bartender. He just becomes like a tour guide for this guy, and starts to form a connection with him where he could have just handed him off to somebody else and it would be somebody else's problem. But he's a hands-on guy. He finishes the job.
You just see, I think that opening scene, they do a good job of, like, establishing him as, like, someone who can, help someone keep their cool in a situation like that, just with his knowledge or whatever. So I like that choice. That was kind of cool when he's like, why don't you go meet him,
Mm-hmm.
It was cool. I like that he was kind of giving the tour around, and he's like, they're just getting drinks, and he's like, my wife hasn't seen me in so long. And it's like,
you're in the bar.
Like, why? I don't know. Go meet up with her.
I mean, I assume that he was just bringing this guy to the bar as part of his duties. It's not that he's always here. It's all Toscan O'Brien in this for the most part. There's no real B story here. The only thing I can think of is there's a weird and very explicit scene at the beginning of the episode that just establishes that Quark literally sexually assaults his patrons.
Oh yeah.
And they kind of, he remains lascivious throughout the series, but they kind of really steer away from that hard, and it's probably for the best.
That hard, though, I do like they kind of maintain that Quark, like they do maintain him as kind of villainous, like they don't kind of totally sand him down, if that makes sense. Like he's not just like, oh, the lovable bad guy. Like, he's definitely lovable a lot, but like he often, I think in like that one episode in season 2 where like the Trill comes to take, Dax's symbiote or whatever, and he like lets them in, and they kind of keep like having him do stuff like that where it's like, wow, you're really putting everyone at risk over and over.
Yeah.
So I like that they play into the more comedic aspects of it all the time, but I like that. I guess I kind of like that element of him, even if this was a little bit like, oh man.
Yeah. The implication that like he'll dock your pay if you don't like go down on him is like, there's nothing we can really do with that. There isn't any, that character can't be the main character of a Star Trek show.
Yeah. Maybe that's too much for what they want.
Yeah. But we immediately get out of that. It's just a little bit of flavor for this episode.
That's like a big I think they keep that up throughout the show, but like they more so than the other, like, to compared to like TNG, they will have like non sequitur moments that are just kind of like world building, you know.
Yeah.
That are just those scenes. It's different than like the Worf tea thing from the last episode.
Yeah.
Where it takes up like too much time, you know?
Yeah, and it's also like, I think, an attempt by them to replicate the success of a character like Guinan, who I'm sure they would have been happy to have on every episode, but of course Whoopi Goldberg, being probably the biggest star on the show, could only be there once in a while. But so they turn around and like cast somebody like Armin Shimmerman as Quark, which is great casting, and then he must have a great agent who says like, no, my guy's going to be on every show. So now they're kind of almost stuck writing a scene like that for almost every episode. But it turns out great. Unlike somebody like Neelix, who also probably had a pretty good agent, where Neelix is kind of hit and miss in the things that he brings to episodes.
I just feel like, too, this show has like 7 Guinans, where it's just like side characters who are just like always there, and they just make them full-fledged characters.
Why the whole show could be about this person. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you could do it like Garrick or something, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow. Like their roster goes deep, you know, where it's like, you got Guinan, Barclay. I don't know. After that, Alexander.
Well, Alexander.
Yeah.
Alexander's just showing up every week, giving bits of wisdom, burning different zoos and places down. I like the fact that a couple actors in this episode all show up in later episodes of the show. The guy that plays Tosk would go on to play several different roles in the show, but most specifically, he plays Dolim, the big bad insectoid Xindi character in the 3rd season of Enterprise.
There's something like so familiar about him where I felt like I recognized him from even somewhere else, but then I just saw that he was in a bunch of Star Trek, so I was like, oh, maybe it's just like seeing him a bunch of times that he's rubbed off on me.
And like, I don't know, I don't really love the character of Tosk. I think that his kind of flatness sort of blunts his reactions to the danger that he's in, but also just his character arc. And it's not the actor though, because as Dolim, like, he's real good. He's like real sinister and real bad. And it made me wonder, were they either consciously or unconsciously trying to make a representation of neuroatypicality?
Oh, you know, I don't think so. That maybe just because that didn't cross my mind, but I guess I guess I can see that. Yeah, I noticed like there's little bits I noticed where he would like he did a good job of like saying a word that he's never heard before and saying it in a way where it's like he's saying the word, but he's not saying it like the way he says asylum or something. Like, it's clear he doesn't like grasp the meaning of the word totally, you know,
or piece of cake. Yeah.
It's a little thing, and maybe it's not that impressive, but I did notice that kind of stuff where I'm like, okay, interesting. Like, he's like sort of getting it, but he doesn't get it.
Yeah. That's what made me wonder if that was something specific that they were trying to do. I do think it's interesting that, you know, we don't know anything about the Tosk. We don't know if Tosk is a name, if it's a title, a race. We don't know anything. But when the lead hunter guy takes his helmet off, there's a real similarity between that race and the Tosk race. And we get the idea. I'm not sure if this is in extended media. I know that they've written a couple stories that involve these characters in books and stuff, but maybe they're like a subspecies of that race, or they've been, you know, genetically altered to be different. And of course they're not. I think the episode is trying to play up the similarities without really calling them out.
It is curious. I kind of like how much they don't like. They argue about the stuff for a little bit, but they don't fully get into it. And I kind of like that, where it's like there's a bigger world that we don't really understand.
This is the first. Technically, I mean, not counting Odo, this is technically the first Gamma Quadrant aliens that we meet.
Totally. And I feel like normally a normal Star Trek episode would be like the rest of the episode would be them like arguing about it forever, But so instead, I like how it's like we don't really fully get into the details because we just get into like Miles doing what's cool and right, I guess, at the same time.
Yeah.
But they do play up, like, it's treated like a reveal when he takes the helmet off and you see they're similar. And then he has a line about, like, well, he's only sentient because we made him so. And I was like, what does that mean? You know, like, does that just mean, like, he was bred for this? Or, like, is there something else weird they did? Yeah, I don't know. I felt that line kind of struck me as strange. Like,
I think it's kind of a dehumanizing or a de-alienizing of those characters, of the Tusk, but also honoring them as well. And I don't think that they meant to do this, but watching this through the lens of Hard Target, it puts me in the mind of what we do to our soldiers, our American servicemen and women, where we send them into the meat grinder, you know, to die for the diplomatic choices that we make. But at home, we're like, oh, we honor them so much. You know, you got to support them. We're going to have a parade and our brave men and women.
I live the greatest adventure of all. Yeah.
Yeah. They're hunting this guy for sport, basically. But when they catch him, you know, they just catch him in a cage because he got caught by Odo and everybody else. They're like, this isn't, you know, your honor this is dishonorable that you would get caught like this. And now we're going to take you home and you know, we're going to dishonorably discharge you and kids are going to throw food at you and stuff like that. You know, we honor the Tusk. It's so great that we get to do this. They're part of this thing. It's like, yeah, you're going to kill them. You have to bring them home dead.
Yeah. I could totally see that. Even if it's like a unintentional thing, it kind of works pretty well. Yeah, it's strange. I noticed too when they capture him or whatever, they say like, we have Tusk, so like they call him it, like they don't say the Tusk. But then I don't know if they never established that. I thought it would have been kind of interesting if that was. I mean, it is kept vague, I guess, but maybe. Yeah. And
we never really, you know, I'm sure like those books or stories I mentioned like ruin it by like digging into it. The ambiguity is what makes it really, really interesting and curious.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that the lead hunter whose face that we see is played by Garrett Graham, who would go on to play Quinn in Voyager, the suicidal Q.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There was something like, he was great too. I feel like he was actually even better. His performance was even better, and there was something, like striking about him that I was like, oh, I feel like I know him. So that's interesting you say that.
I like how this episode becomes, maybe the B plot or the B theme of it is that it's a First Contact Prime Directive episode.
Yeah.
That, you know, and I would argue that when guys start beaming onto your station and shooting guns, it's not a like Prime Directive episode anymore. It's just a defend yourself episode. But not wanting to sour like their First Contact with a race from the Delta or Gamma Quadrant, Sisko's thought is we got to let these guys do what they're going to do, because otherwise, you know, we're being disrespectful, even if it means giving this guy up. And that's the Starfleet line, and we can honor that. But then O'Brien could be the guy who does the right thing, which is what happens so often in these Prime Directive stories, which is the Prime Directive is the wrong thing to do in this case. And O'Brien gets to go on his own little adventure and help this guy out.
I liked that idea too, because it's like, okay, we got to protect ourselves and do all this. But then like when all that, for the most part, I guess they're like in the like tunnels and stuff. But I thought when like that's going on, it's like you see them like slowly, you know, like we're not really going to stop them. But I did think about it, like, what if this like ended up somewhere in a public setting, you know, where they're firing weapons and stuff, you know, like someone could have been in that hallway. I guess they probably would have intervened and maybe O'Brien planned for that. But I thought that was kind of funny. Like, oh no, like they're just like letting them, you know, like play this out on their station. Like, yeah, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's not totally clear. I never get really a sense of the scale of DS9. I mean, you know, the Enterprise D can dock there, so clearly it's very huge.
Yeah.
So you have to imagine that many of those corridors are just empty or just lead to cargo bays or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And O'Brien's there climbing through, and he's like, nothing can really get through here. So he's probably like, I'll give him some credit. He's probably mapped a safe way out of there.
Yeah. I love the the enemies. The prop department for these shows, of course, is amazing, and they come up with great stuff every week. And the enemies have cool uniforms and helmets, but I could tell that their guns were modified Nerf crossbows.
I felt they looked cool in a fun, kind of goofy sci-fi way, but it did look kind of like Power Rangers to me a little bit.
There's a crossbow from that Nerf crossbow from that era that has those. It doesn't have an actual string, but it's got those little arms that come out, and I think they kind of rotated those 90 degrees and sprayed them silver.
When I was a kid, I thought those were so cool, so that's fine.
Yeah, these hunters are using cool weapons.
That's creative. You use it on use your budget wisely, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, found objects are the prop master's best friend.
You just go into a pizza kitchen and find half your stuff. I've noticed random things from working in kitchens that I will see as like rubble or something, and I'm like, oh, that's what we use to hold the pizzas at work.
So somebody blew up a pizza kitchen.
Maybe that's what they beamed into the remains of a.
So we've lost the pizza kitchen, sir. I like the idea of it being a game, the most dangerous game. Mm-hmm. They have the restraint to not say that, but it is a game, and there's rules. And O'Brien makes this connection about how there are rules to his game or his life, his career that he goes by, but maybe he can break those rules. And I like the fact that it's Quark, who he doesn't like being called barkeep, I guess, but he definitely is somebody who can hear people's troubles. He just usually tries to manipulate them after he hears them. But for some reason today, he's like, no, I'm going to help you out. And so he sits down, tell me about your problems, and helps O'Brien sort of figure out, well, maybe I don't have to follow the rules in this case.
You know what?
And for O'Brien, who is a longtime military man, that's a big revelation.
That had the whole vibe of like he got a talking to from HR. And so now he's like, hey, no, I'm cool. What's your problem? I'm a good guy,
Yeah. Maybe a scene that we don't see where Sisko's like, you want to stay on this station? Knock it off. Yeah. Oh, okay. Let me help you out.
I'm not a barkeep. I'm the, an ear for the troubled souls or whatever. He gets really into it.
Yeah. I would never do anything like that. Yeah.
Headcanon.
I could see that. I like when O'Brien gets into the action as well, and he has the security field zap the guy, and
punches
then he gives him a hook.
Glass jaw, huh?
Yeah.
Which we just saw him boxing last week. That's
true.
So it's believable.
That's true.
Yeah, it's a little like some of the Miles character building is a little, like I said, cornball-y. But I guess it fits his character, like Miles at his coolest is he's still a little bit of a goof,
Yeah, that's a great part about him, and it's a part of Colin Meaney's versatility as an actor. I think that you can get those shades out of him.
Oh yeah, I
love when he takes Tosk to his quarters and he shows him the replicator and he's like, oh, these replicators are getting pretty good. They're oatmeal. Chef's kiss.
Right, yeah.
It's like O'Brien would totally like that oatmeal. He would absolutely be the guy that orders an oatmeal.
Which is, again, pretty. The range is very, like you said, very clear, because we saw him last week be the most sadistic, gross, scummy guy, and now he's lovable dork.
Yeah, give me that oatmeal. Odo, of course, in the first season or two is a little different than the Odo that we get to know later on.
Right.
And I like in this how once these guys beam aboard and they're shooting everybody and they're carrying guns around, it becomes kind of his jurisdiction and he's going to deal with it the way he wants to. But of course he has to answer to Sisko, and Sisko knows what O'Brien is going to get up to. And I love the scene in Ops where Odo's like, oh, they're moving, they're sneaking through the tunnels, so we got to get them. And Sisko's like, you don't have to run down there and fix it. You can take your time. And there's this great work by Rene Auberjonois, but he gives him like a triple take that takes
time.
15 seconds to do. Because he looks at me, he's like, "That's what you want me to do." And he starts to walk off, and he looks back. "That's what you want me to do?" And then he gets on the turbo lift, and he's like, "I'm gonna do this thing you want me to do." And it's just great.
I always read it as him like settling into like kind of liking it, if that makes sense, which doesn't seem like an Odo thing, like, because he's so set up as like, I want control. You see that, throughout the series where it's like, I want control of security, no one else. And I was kind of surprised, but I felt like, it's kind of early. Maybe they're just trying to show different sides of him, because he seemed more like satisfied to me by the end of it. But maybe
it's
I read it wrong.
No, that's totally possible. I think that he would be really chagrined that Sisko was telling him what to do on his station. But these are guys who just beamed in and started blasting the promenade up. So maybe he's like cool with like, okay, yeah, we'll mess with these guys a little bit.
Yeah, maybe he's sort of like satisfied with that. Like, you know what? Yeah, it'll be fine.
Well, this is a pretty solid, if not necessarily light your pants on fire episode, but like a lot of episodes in the first season, it's really concerned with laying the groundwork, I think, laying the foundation for what DS9 is supposed to be and how it differentiates itself from the rest of Trek. Like I said in my intro, I think a lot of these plots and a lot of the way that the characters react to them are very TNG or very Trek-ish. Mm-hmm. The episode where they all forget how to talk, which I think is right before this, is like that could have happened on the Enterprise, no problem. But getting to focus in on this character, a character, like you mentioned, we'd only seen before on the Enterprise and now is doing stuff, on his own, is very great, I think, for establishing how DS9 is going to be different and focus on characters in a new way.
I agree. And there's something like, I feel like at this point they've just gotten really good at what they're doing, because in the first, like you said, in the first maybe 2 seasons, there's a lot of episodes where the plot, at first I feel like, this is kind of goofy. Like, it feels like, all right, like, what's a Star Trek thing that can happen? And it just feels like, this is maybe a little goofy, like they're pushing it. But then by the time it gets to like the third act, they typically have like a really satisfying payoff for the setup, where I'm like usually like cheering, fist pumping, like hell yeah. And this is one of them a little bit where I was like, okay, I kind of like this. Maybe the Babel one is like that too. I can't quite remember the payoff of that one, but I remember by the end of it being like, okay, actually, that was pretty fun. I was nervous at first, but it worked out.
Yeah. I don't know how they would have done it, but it might have been fun to. I've heard people lament that we never see Tosk again. He forms this bond with O'Brien and then just takes off, and he never gets to see his friend again.
Yeah, there was it was like something like kind of like endearing, like similar to Hugh or something, where you would like a little follow up. There's still time. There's still time.
Well, Lower Decks will find a way to ruin it somehow.
Oh, you're right.
Well, O'Brien is the chief technology master on the station, and technology is what makes Trek Trek. It facilitates what the characters are doing. Just as often, it's the actual complication they're dealing with. So on every show, we randomly pick from a list of Star Trek technologies, and we add what we get to the non-Trek media. We subtract it from the Trek episode to see how each would be different. We call it our technological exchange, and our list of technologies includes phasers, holodecks, tricorders, transporters, warp drives, replicators, communicators, shields, advanced medical technology, and androids. And I am extra nervous about this one for some reason. I don't know why, but I will roll on my random number selecting technology. And it bounced off a thing, but we'll take it anyway. It's 2 holodecks. If holodecks existed in the world of 1993 New Orleans, how would they be different?
For some reason, I immediately got the idea in my head of like the classic, like where you use the holodeck to trick someone into thinking they're someone else.
Ooh,
but
okay, that could be good for the maybe for the third act.
Yeah,
I think that if you had this holographic technology instead of Van Damme just looking at the file and the crime scene, he's like, we would ask the policewoman character, oh, can I use the police crime lab? And the crime lab would have like a 3D reconstruction of the scene where he's, enhance on this part in finding different clues.
I could see like a cool like cyberpunk hard target where it's like, you don't have all the same like Star Trek kind of things, but like holographic technology maybe is like, so everyone's got one. Maybe that's like replace entertainment. So like, the rich guys use it for their hunts and the police have it for their database, and you're jacking in to make phone calls and stuff. I think that'd actually be kind of a cool setting. Even the actual cover of the movie even has like that kind of vibe. I could see it being like, if you told me like this is a cyberpunk movie, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, cyber arrows. There's a lot of people dodging arrows in Hard Target. I don't know if you knew you could dodge arrows, but apparently 3 different people can in that movie. Also, there's the idea of like hunting people for sport. Like you could do it. This could be like a movie killer where we don't have a movie anymore, but maybe people are already doing that in a virtual environment. But there are some people, the richest of the rich, paid to do it for real. You're not just killing somebody in a 3D video game.
Oh, no.
You're actually feeling the blood rush, of the real act.
For some reason, I totally just thought of that movie Gamer. Gerard Butler.
Oh my God. Like, which kind of combines the two things, doesn't it? It
does, yeah. Where it's like you just make the guys, only they're criminals, right?
I think you can just, no, because the mom character, the Amber Valletta's character, I think she just gets money for it.
Okay.
Or maybe she, I don't know, maybe she ran a red light or something like that. But I got the idea that like, yeah, it's criminals, but you could actually just buy in. Like, you'll give me $50,000 if I let somebody pilot me around for a day or something.
Okay, yeah, I could totally see that. And you could still have the same kind of metaphors of like, rich versus poor, or like the unwanted, people you want to push aside or whatever.
Why is it, and Hard Target is exempt from this, but why is it that filmmakers, people that want to explore those stories in that kind of movie or environment, always have the worst intentions? Because Gamer is a terrible film, and it is
I don't know,
exploitative and gross. But the idea of an underclass who are selling themselves for money and celebrity in an environment like that, and even taking on like the world of esports, which we're finding out has a lot of problems. Like if you pay attention to the news, like that is a terrible world. Gamer could have shined a light on that, but it's just a chance for Jerry Butler to break necks and see titties and stuff like that.
Well, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if this is necessarily the right metaphor, but like a broken clock is right twice a day. Where it's like,
yeah,
okay, like they definitely had the opposite of intentions, or like they weren't thinking about it, but maybe there's something there. Not in regards to Gamer, but like there are movies like that where, like it feels like maybe they're not explicitly considering like whatever the class aspect of this, but like whatever, it happened. They did it whether they meant to or not.
Yeah.
I can't speak on Gamer though.
I just remember seeing that and just being like, man, this is not great.
We got to get...
And the game in Gamer is called Society.
Whoa. It's a...
See what I mean?
Yeah, it's got a little bit of that Joker vibe.
Yeah, you are screaming the quiet part out loud. If holodecks didn't exist in DS9 and in Captive Pursuit, what then?
Well, yeah, wasn't a feature here. It worked well for Hard Target, but sometimes it's good. It doesn't have to be like a even trade, I guess. Sometimes it's very nice for the episode to give up its technology to the movie.
Yeah, there is absolutely no holograms in that episode. Let's just talk about the world. Quark might actually be a barkeep primarily. He wouldn't have holo suites.
Okay,
he wouldn't have, I assume, a business where people pay him under the table to go do the really good holo suite programs. That wouldn't exist. You wouldn't also have the the outlet in that society of, I don't know, like Miles and Julian like to do war games and the Battle of Britain. I mean, they are kind of killing people and hunting people for sport virtually in the holodeck, right? Or in holosuites. So you wouldn't have that release valve in their society. So maybe when the hunters and the Tosks show up, the Federation is more like, oh yeah, so we have blood sport. Yes, of course. We understand this.
Well, yeah, maybe. I was thinking maybe they'd still have Xbox or something.
Yeah, there you go. Quark is running an esports business.
It's like a gaming
and there is
lounge.
Absolutely a line in all the contracts that he gets to molest all of his workers.
And it's like, please put on deodorant.
I don't know if you're old enough to remember the internet cafes of the 90s, but yeah, that was definitely a thing. They should have just handed out deodorant at the door.
Yeah. I mean, that legacy is carried on to, to Super Smash Brothers tournaments, to really all
Son,
the fighting
one day
games.
this BO will all be yours. Yes.
It's a time-honored gaming tradition.
Holodecks. Maybe if it's all holographic technology, I think we've run this game before. If it means that they don't have any holographic technology or view screens or anything, then it's a more hands-on approach. And unfortunately, you're not going to be able to pull the ship with Hulk hands on this one. But maybe they'd have to look out of a window to see who's coming or who's docking or whatever. It's
Just
more
a big
of
window, yeah.
A hands-on approach to things. Although now that I think about it, you could just tape Hulk hands to the pylons of the station, and maybe you could spin the station around, and it's just like punch, 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 punch.
Yeah, punch, yeah. Or maybe they get a big net that they could capture guys in. Like you get close,
yeah,
and the top of the station where it's like a pincer, it's got like a little net on it, and it just goes like and like throws it on them.
They got their force fields and their tractor beams. They forgot all about nets. That definitely. If somebody's trying to take off from the station, you just fire a giant net from one of the pylons. They're not going anywhere.
One of those cool things like that like wrap around your legs, like Kraven the Hunter style.
Yeah. There's a thing that I was reading about, I think on Memory Alpha about the episode, and the fact that these are sort of reptilian aliens that can turn invisible made people go, oh, is this like a prototype for the Jem'Hadar? And I think at some point in one of those extended media things, somebody did make a connection between the Jem'Hadar and these guys. Like maybe the people that the Dominion turned to help create the Jem'Hadar also did the work on the Tosk people, like gave them the cloaking ability.
Oh, sure.
And that sort of thing. And I think there was a deleted scene in a future episode where we see a Tosk, or not a Tosk, excuse me, a Hunter character amongst a group of people with the a Founder character, implying that whoever the Hunters are, they are also, part of the Dominion.
That works pretty well. I mean, I like how they end up getting there, even though I feel like the way they end up going with the Dominion, you'd feel like everybody they would meet would be like, oh my god, the Dominion,
Yeah.
Though there are people early on they meet and they're like, you should probably hear about this Dominion.
Yeah, but it's something that I like as well, in that we know that the Dominion are totally implacable. When you challenge them, they bring, the whole weight of their fleet and their vicious soldiers to subdue you. But also, being the bad guys, they're also kind of like laissez-faire. Like in the early episodes where we hear about the Dominion or we're on the outskirts of their space, you can kind of do what you want. There's a lot of races that are just, there's a thriving trade.
Yeah.
And the idea is, they're technically in charge, but we get to do whatever we want until we get to the planet where Bashir discovers that everybody has a horrible disease that has lasted for generations because those guys pissed the Dominion off. And it's like, oh, this isn't laissez-faire. Like this is totally, a dictatorship.
Right.
It just seems like everything's, this is empire through and through.
Sort of had that feeling like when they get all those refugees who want to settle on Bajor, it's like, it seems like they were chill, but then like the Dominion was like, yeah, we want what's going on there. So we're gonna totally wreck you guys now. So I do kind of I kind of like that idea where it's like they're this powerful empire, but they're also somehow like shadowy figures.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's it's the Roman Empire. It's like, you're Roman now. Well, actually, we're French. No, you're Roman. You can, do whatever you want, live your lives. You can do whatever you want, but if when the tax man comes around, you pay, and if you don't pay, then we come in and we decimate you, which is to say, we kill one out of every 10 of you, and burn your shit down until you start paying that tax.
Yeah,
again.
And they have such a like a impenetrable structure for doing that too. Like all the levels to it kind of let them do that. Where it's like they have the Legion and stuff like that. Where it's like they'll show up and mess you up first, and then we see eventually what happens if it's got to go far enough. Where it's like you eventually get the founders themselves infiltrating.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty cool. It's almost, I really have always loved the structure of Star Trek, and I love the fact that it's really about the kind of very basic human emotions that you'd see in, I don't know, a cartoon or something. But if they ever did take the brakes off and let somebody write a Star Trek show that was like a Battlestar show, or like a show that was less concerned with the emotions and just wanted to show you the ins and outs of a galactic empire or something like that, you could have something pretty cool, probably.
Oh, like a Dominion show.
Yeah, because we get all these details. Star Trek is good at painting in the corners with details, but at the end of the day, it's about whether Jake and Cisco are getting along or something like that.
Yeah.
It's only really at the end of DS9 that we really get into like the politics of Empire. But I'd be willing to, with all these new shows, I'd be willing to let them forget about the emotions for once and just give us a look into the nitty gritty of the politics and the Empire.
Yeah, just show us something kind of kick ass too, just a cool army show where they're just going around and fighting stuff. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, because that's what Battlestar was. I mean, the reboot, the reboot kept just enough of the Mormon stuff to give it character, but it was basically just a show set on an aircraft carrier. It was a Navy show.
Yeah. I totally like that too. Like that's so not. I mean, Star Trek is like a military show too, but like
nominally, yeah.
But yeah, it would be cool. Like, yeah, I kind of like that by the end of Deep Space Nine, they kind of are like, let's be real about this a little bit. It reminds me actually of like the like that quote from like a year or two ago of like Zack Snyder talking about Batman killing people. He's like, of course he does. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I guess he's right, but he's just so obnoxious about it. That's how I feel about the end of Deep Space Nine, where it's like, of course it's a military. Let's get real.
Yeah. And that's what I'd be worried about with, like I said, like taking the heart out of Star Trek and just focusing on all these cool ships and everything. Like you'd have to get a non-Zack Snyder type to head that thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we did it. No holodecks. We did it. Should we tell people what's coming up on the next episode of Backtracking?
Okay, we're talking about the animated series episode, The Infinite Vulcan, and how what it shares in common with The Boys from Brazil, which I know nothing about. So I'm excited about that.
I'll give you some keywords here. Nazi hunter.
Okay.
Genetic experimentation. Attack dogs.
Oh, okay. So it's like Command and Conquer.
Laurence Olivier. Command and Conquer. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go to the one place that's safe for Nazism. Argentina. Yeah. Maybe not so much, but we will unlock the mystery of that on our next show. But that's it for this week's Backtracking. Thanks for listening, everybody. And if you like the show, tell a friend. And you can follow us at Backtracking on Twitter. We are always looking for recommendations of things that inspired Star Trek episodes. So let us know if you've got any. Could we tell the people where they can find you online?
You can find me. I'm on Twitter. I'm at GUIFame.
And I'm on Twitter at KA1IBAN. You can find all the shows on the Just Enough Trope Network at Just Enough Trope. And that's it for us. See you soon. And until then, keep on trekking.